Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Simply Cards by Kathy. I'm Kathy Andes, and today I'm going to show you how to make a window card, and we're going to use the Winter Owls bundle. This is a bundle that's retiring, but it is one of my favorites. I love owls, and it makes a really pretty window card. So if you are new to my channel, welcome. I'm so happy you're here with me and that you found me, and I hope you'll like what you see and come back. And if you're returning and watching me live or on the replay, I really appreciate your support and helping me grow my channel. So I'm going to show you some tips and tricks as we go along the way. So I'm going to flip this camera down and we're going to get started. Okay, we are going to be using the Winter Owl stamp set. This is a cling stamp set. And this one I have my dies in with my stamps. And we're going to be using this little guy here. I am using the sentiments from this. We're using the tree. And I'm going to show you the dies. The dies go with all those images that we just, oh, that's our rectangle dies. Where'd my little owl dies go? Well, they're here. So they'll pop up here in a minute, but we're going to be using these two dies from this bundle. I don't know where they went. So I'm going to show you the card first, which I know I don't usually do, but I just want you to see where we're going and how we're going to work with this. So this is the card we're going to make. I know you're getting some glare from the window sheet, but really cute shaker card. And I use the One Horse Open Sleigh paper for the background. So let's get started. We're going to go ahead and do our stamping first. Now, all we really need to do is stamp that little owl. And then we also, I have my greeting stamped already. So let's go ahead and do this little owl. Now, the colors that we're going to be using tonight, and let me bring those out for you, is Pecan Pie, Lost Lagoon, and Early Espresso. Very untypical Christmas colors. But this is a card. Actually, I'm making about 10 of them for my Christmas cards. And I kind of wanted them to match with the designer series paper. So we're going to use Pecan Pie for the little owl. And I'm going to go ahead and ink this up. And I have just a little scrap paper here. We're going to go ahead and give him a good press. I hope you all had a good weekend. Not so good. I missed a spot. So let's see here. If it was a photopolymer stamp set, I would go back over it, but it isn't, so I'm not. Okay, that looks good. So let's go ahead and we're going to set that off to the side. And that's the last for the pecan pie for this. Now for the inside of the card, and we're going to do something with him in a minute, I'm going to go ahead and use the tree from this stamp set right in here. And I'm going to stamp that in Early Espresso. It's a bare tree. The leaves are gone for winter. So we're just going to go ahead and stamp that. And I'm going to take it right about to the bottom, but not quite. Okay. I know we never leave things sitting in midair, and we're not going to. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that. And then for our greeting, I'm using one from the Winter Owls that says, may you have time to enjoy the quiet moments of the season. So let's go ahead and we're going to stamp that on the inside. And then we have all of our stamping done. Now, you could stamp this in the early espresso, and I think it'd be really pretty. But since I already stamped the greeting and did tuxedo black, I'm just going to go ahead with it. Okay. Now, we're going to use our Lost Lagoon. And also in this stamp set, you have some snowflakes. So I'm just going to ink this up lightly, and I'm just going to turn my stamp and add a few flakes to my card. And I just want them to look like they're kind of coming down to the ground. Whoops. And you'll see why in just a minute. We're going to get a couple here. And I don't care if they go among the tree, because then it looks like there's snow in the background. Just a little bit here. All right. And I did get a little ink there, but we're going to go with it. Now, I have my blender pen. And if you're new to the blender pen, it will help to pull color from your stamped image. So with this, I want to add some snow. So you can take your ink pad and squeeze it. I don't have much luck with that. So I either put it on a little block, or I'm just going to go right around the edge here and pick up the ink that I have on here. And I'm just going to check it. And then I'm just going to add some waves that look like snow. And pick up a little more. Okay. Now, I'm going to use this on my owl too. So I want to clean it off, and I'm just going to wipe it. And you'll see, if you're new to using the blender pen, it's going to wipe off clean. There we go. But I'm not going to use this end. You have two ends. I'm going to let that dry. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to close this up because we don't need it now. And I'm going to bring in my little owl. Now, this is my snowy owl. At least that's what I'm calling them. And I want to make sure this tip is clean. And then I'm just going to go right around the edge here. And hopefully I'll pick this up in a minute. I'm going to pull some of that color from the outline of his feathers in. If you've ever seen a snowy owl, and I've only seen one once, and it was actually in captivity, they are white with a little bit of brown on them. So I just want him to look as natural as possible. And I'm going to do a little bit to the head here. Okay. And then a little bit around his back, just pulling that color out. And I think I'm good with that. Let's get here right by his neck. And then just clean that off and put it away, and you have it for the next time. So we're ready to cut this little guy out. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to just put the die on it. Now, I do tape my dies down if I'm on a stamped image, just because I've had too many times them slide. And we're also going to cut this tree trunk out of early espresso. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a piece of tape here that I had and get this all ready. And these are ready to die cut. And we're going to set this off to the side here. All right. Now, one more thing. We need to make the window for our window card. So I'm using my deckled rectangle dies, and I'm using the second largest one. Now, don't worry about measurements, because I am going to give you a downloadable PDF with written instructions so that you can see exactly what you need to do to recreate this. And even though I'm using this stamp set, this window card template can be used for any stamp set. use what you have. I am using Lost Lagoon because that's what's in my designer series paper. And this is 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4.25. And we're just going to go ahead and fold that and burnish it right along the edge of the card. Okay. Now, for my front, I want to use a piece of designer series paper, and this is the one I chose. It's from One Horse Open Sleigh, and I wanted to be able to keep that tree, and you're going to see why in just a minute. So we're going to cut this down, and we're cutting this down to 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. So I'm going to reach behind me and bring in my trimmer. And I want this side with the tree. So we're going to go to 3 7/8. By 5 1/8. So let's go with, I want to see if I cut from the bottom how much that's going to take off. I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch off the top or off the bottom. Let's do that. So we'll go to 5 3/4. All right, and now we're going to flip it around and cut off the top to 5 1/8. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so we now have our designer series paper. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and adhere this to the front of our card. All right, and I'm just going to do it with some glue. And we are going to make our window out of Lost Lagoon that will actually cover over this. In fact, I think I'm going to trim this down just a little bit more, maybe to another 1/8 of an inch. Just a little bit of a touch or a gauche, as I've heard others people say. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to adhere this. Now, if you're out there watching me, leave me a comment if you've ever made a window card and if you do like it. I love to make window cards. I think they're fun. And they're also kind of magical. I love when the shakers, you're able to shake it and they move around. Okay, so there's our front. Now, our cover or window is out of another piece of Lost Lagoon. And this is going to be 4 by 5 1/4. But I want to cut the window out. So I'm going to use that second largest deckled rectangle. And I'm just going to eyeball it. I want it to be pretty even on top and on the sides. And then I am going to hold this in place with a piece of tape. So let's make sure this looks pretty even. I'm going to tape that there. That needs to go up just a little bit here. I am using the Post-it note tape. I really like that tape. I don't have it with trouble with it sticking to the cardstock or tearing my paper. And I've even been able to use it with some more sheer papers and it doesn't tear. So there's that. And we are going to bring in the cut and emboss machine. And we're going to cut out our 3 dies. I know this is close and hard to see, but what I'm using is plate number 1 and plate number 2 and 2 plate number 3s. So I'm going to set this here. I'm going to move it up a little bit. I'm going to set this here. And I'm going to run these through at the same time. And then I think we'll have to run our little owl through on his own. So I'm just, you're going to hear a pop probably. Oh, you didn't. Okay. And I'm going to set these off to the side here, and then let's run our little owl through. And we're done with the cutting. By now, I hope you have seen the last chance in the retirement list. And if not, please drop me a line and I'll be happy to provide you with that. The other thing is I do a weekly newsletter in which I put everything with links such as that in that newsletter so that you have it. And I also provide you with free tutorials. So if you're interested, just go over to my website, Simply Cards by Kathi, and you can sign up for my newsletter there. All right, so we've cut out our deckled rectangle, and I'm just going to take this off here and set it off to the side. And you now have this beautiful rectangle that you can use for something else. But we have our frame. So there's our frame. And now we need the window. So I'm going to bring in my window sheet. And I'm going to bring in the other two die cuts that we made. This is our tree. Here's our little snowy owl or owl. And then we have our window sheet. Now, Stampin' Up! Does sell the window sheets. They come, I believe, 2 sheets, 12 by 12, and you cut them to size. But I want to show you a trick. You know, if you order photopolymer stamps, they come on a window sheet. And don't throw these away. These are great for crafting and using to make window cards. And I want to show you a trick with that. This is from one of the photopolymer stamp sets. And what I do is I'll lay these on just a microfiber cloth. And I either take window cleaner or I take an alcohol pad and I simply rub gently until I get them clean. And then I just pat them dry. I don't want to keep rubbing them dry because otherwise you'll get scratches in it. I turn it over and I do the same thing. And you might have to do it twice, but usually if you take your time and do it, it'll come out. And look at, you now have a perfect window sheet to use for your window cards or your crafting. And you've reused it from your photopolymer stamp set. All right, so we're going to create our window sheet here. And what I'm going to do is I am using tear and tape. I love this stuff. And it works really well. I don't like to use glue when I'm doing a window card because if you get the glue on your window sheet, it's a mess. And it often is very hard to get off. So I'm going to take my tear and tape and I'm going to bring in a silicone mat here to do this. And I'm just going to run this right along the edge here. Now, if I go over the edge, no big deal, and I'll show you why. Okay, so let's tear this off. And I hate tearing this because I'm afraid I'll tear my frame, so I do like to cut it. And then we're going to go along this edge and do the exact same thing all the way around the frame. And I do stay along the edge so that it doesn't show through or end up on my window sheet. And we're just going to keep doing this. Okay, and then one more. And this is really the easiest, one of the easiest ways I've found to do it. If you've watched me ever do a window card before, the other way is I do 1/8 inch strips or 1/4 inch strips, depending on the size of my frame. And I layer about 5 or 6 on top of one another. That's out of cardstock scraps. And then I simply glue those around the frame and attach those to the card. So that's another way. So I want to make sure that these are adhered well. So I'm just going to give them a good press with my bone folder all the way around. Okay, and I'm going to bring in my little window sheet here. And we're going to go ahead and adhere this. Now to do that, I'm going to remove, you can remove it all at once. I have found for me, I do a little bit better removing a little bit at a time. So I take off the top and then I start and peel this back a little bit so that I can get a hold of it, and do the same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to take my window sheet and I'm going to lay it down. And then I'm going to go down one side. Let's move that so you can see it. And you want to leave your frame flat, because if you don't, or you start bending it, it's not going to, your frame is going to get misshapen and it won't look nice. It'll look pretty wonky. So now I'm just going to peel this back and grab a hold of it. And I now have my window sheet. Okay, so this is what's going to go on the front of our card. Now to adhere it, what I was telling you about layering the white strips on top of one another, that's to adhere it to the card. Or you can use foam adhesive strips, which is what we're going to do today. So Stampin' Up! Does sell them. And these are common strips that you can cut or tear. And I'm going to go ahead and lay these right along. I'm going to go top to bottom and lay this right along, right inside the outer edge. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut. And I'm going to do the same here. Just along the inside outer edge. And they're pretty sticky. Now, if you notice that you have, like I do right here, a little bit of that tear and tape overlapping, I simply fold it in along the outer edge and you never see it. So we need to add 2 more. So let's go ahead here. Hi, Renee. Thank you for joining me. And we're going to add this here. Now, when you're working with the frame, I don't want it right on my outside edge, but I also want to make sure it's inside enough that you don't see it from the, when you're looking straight down at the card, looking at the frame. So let's do this, and I'm going to trim this off. Okay. Now, because I have to turn this over and add it to the front of the card, I'm not going to add my shaker pieces yet, because I can set them in the middle. So let's do that. So I'm using the silver sequins, and these are in the annual catalog. And I'm just going to take these and kind of I'm going to put plenty of them in here and just put them in the middle of my card. Okay. I want enough, but not too many. And I want them to stay in the middle. And I have a couple sticking to my fingers, so we might as well use them. I want them to stay in the middle as I put my frame around my card. So now we're going to peel this off. This peels back, and now you have the sticky that's going to stick to your card. So I'm going to peel all of these off. And I'm lifting it up, not so you can't see it, but so I don't bump those sequins that are on the front of my card. Okay. And I want to make sure these are all in the center. If they are out and you catch them, you're not going to get a good seal, and then you're going to lose your sequins. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten that. And we're going to go ahead and, oops, I kind of grabbed it there. So I'm going to pick it back up. And give it a good press all the way around so that you have a good seal. And now here's your shakers. So really pretty. All right, so now it's time to add our owl. So here's the tree trunk. Now I wanted this to look like it was part of the designer series paper. I wanted it to have some depth and dimension. Let's see if I take that away, if that takes the glare. That helps a little bit. So I'm going to pop this up right on my window, but I'm going to use mini Stampin' Dimensionals to do that. And when I turn it over, I have some areas here that you can see there's a lot of texture to this, but you have some areas here that aren't separated. So I'm just going to add some around so that in those areas, so that I know I can get this popped up good enough that it's going to look like it's standing out from the tree. Okay, I'm going to go up in here. I'd love to know in the comments if you have a favorite stamp set that's on that last chance list that's retiring. I am bummed with so many of them retiring. The owl one and the winter meadow, I thought that would stick around. So now the one horse open sleigh is I'm using that designer series paper. That is an online exclusive. So it is in stock. It isn't retiring as of now. So if that's something you're still looking for, it is available. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to add this right to my window and over the tree. I want it to look like some of the branches were coming off of this. Now my little owl, I'm going to pop him up here right within that opening, and I'm going to add 2 Stampin' Dimensionals here and a glue dot, because the Stampin' Dimensionals will grab to that window and he'll adhere to that. But the tail is going to adhere to the die cut tree trunk. So I want to go ahead and add that to his tail. Okay, let's go ahead and take these off. And I want him to look right like he's coming out of that little opening. So there's that. Now we're ready to add our greeting, warm wishes. And I'm going to trim this down. It's just a little longer than I'd like it to be. So I'm just going to trim this off. And this Warm Wishes actually is from the Winter Owls stamp set. And what I like about it is that, you know, even with your Christmas cards, you don't have to always have something that says Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas. I thought Warm Wishes was a nice greeting, little bit different than we typically would put on the card, but our inside greeting is Christmassy. So I have two dimensionals on here, and I'm going to stick a glue dot on the other end because that's going to rest on that die cut that's already elevated with dimensionals. So let's put this here. All right. Now for the inside, let's adhere our inside to the card. Remember, we stamped that when we first, before we even made the card, that we did that when we first started the video. Now, if you didn't want to stamp the tree and the snowflakes, you could take a strip of matching designer series paper and just run it down the edge or across the bottom. And let's finish him up with a little linen thread bow. So I am going to double this up, and this is at the end of my linen thread. So we'll cut that off. And I'm just going to make a double bow, and we're going to adhere it to the front of the card. Oh. I have glue on my hands, and everything is sticking to it. All right, here we go. Okay, so pull that and bring this smaller. And just size it to the size that you want it. I'm going to bring it even smaller. And that looks pretty good. So then we just cut our tails off here. And now I can see a little bit easier that it was still not proportionate. All right, let's trim that, and we're going to add a little glue dot to the back and add it on. So I think an easy way to make a card, shaker card, window card, and I love that it has a lot of the sprinkles in that and that they move around. So I'm going to show you one other thing. Here was another piece of paper I was considering for using as the background, where you'd have the deer on the side and be able to run your tree trunk in here. So lots of ways to use this, or just add it to a card front with your little owl. So let me bring you back to me. I hope you enjoyed today's video and learning about some tips and tricks on how to make a window card. I enjoyed showing it to you. I hope you have a great week. I will be back with you on Thursday at 6 p.m. And stay safe and well, and I will see you soon.